Meria here, alive and kicking. Welcome to one of my obviously newest, most popular monthly segments, my segments with David Icke. A lot of you are letting me know you've already gotten the book, Human Race, Get Off Your Knees, The Lion Sleeps No More. I've heard from a lot of you on Facebook, Twitter. You've gotten the book, you're reading it, you're excited about listening to the interviews to go along with the book, which is great. If you're a new listener, I have the book on my book list. It's right here in today's archive. Click through, buy it. This is, without question of a doubt, one of the best composites of everything that I've ever seen, and I surely am not surprised it's David Icke that put it together. Good morning, David.
Hello, Meria.
How are you today?
I've had better days, to be honest. Yeah, I've had better days.
Oh no. What's going on?
Well, sometimes, you just wonder. Two people came into my life some years ago, and these two people have verbally expressed their love and support for me and my work. Your work's so important. We've got to get the word out. Oh, yeah, it's so important. And these two people have turned out to be the greatest challenges in my life, the greatest challenges to my work, to my health, and to my finances. And I've ended up in court with both of them. And, sometimes you just look at the world, you see what's going on. I was at a rally in Trafalgar Square in London on Saturday for child abuse and people are having their children stolen by the state, loving parents, people who've been through satanic ritual and pedophile rings and all the rest of it. And you see this, and you see what's happening in the world and how important it is to get this information out to people so they see what's going on as opposed to what they are told is going on. And you give your life, Meria, to doing this. 20 years now of constant focus. There's nothing else basically in my life. I get up in the morning, I'm doing it all day, I'm doing it in the evening, I'm traveling all around the world. I have a passion, an absolute passion for doing what I do. And then you look at people who claim to be spiritual, who claim to be wanting a world of love and kindness and peace, and all they can do is try to exploit your efforts and your books and what you do and talks and everything. And if that's the only contribution they can make to the world, is to try to exploit for their own financial ends.
Right.
Someone who is, I'm not claiming any kudos. I don't want a round of applause. I do it because I believe in it passionately, more every day, more passionately every day. But, when I look at that, and that there are people who will do that, despite what I'm doing, and despite the state of the world, well, it takes my breath away. It takes my speech away, really, almost. For me, that's a miracle. Because I cannot comprehend a mentality that would do that. But it's been done to me now twice, or there's an effort to do it twice to me now.
Right.
And I'm just, at the moment, today, I'll get up tomorrow and I'll be up and on again. But today, it's just completely knocked me over for a few hours because I cannot comprehend the mentality that would do it, especially when that mentality promotes itself as,
love and light.
Love and light, and God's gift to the world, yeah.
Well, first of all, there's a lot of phonies out there. most of the New Agers, the Love and Lighters, are as in the dark as possible. And I think that one of the hardest things, like you, I live my passion every day. I'm certainly not getting rich off of it. And I think it hurts extra when it's someone who professes their undying love for you, and then they stab you in the back or try to ruin you. I've been there myself. And it's not, it kind of takes your soul down to the pits of hell for a while.
Well, it's done it to me today, I must say, that you pretty much encapsulate the way I'm feeling at the moment. But like I say, I'm Mr. Bounce.
Right. Well,
Rubber ball come bouncing back to me, as the old song went. And tomorrow morning I will bounce and I'll be up again. But at the moment, it's very painful to comprehend what is being attempted here.
Right. Well, I was in a similar situation, David, and when it was the people closest to me that said they loved me, supported my work, they would love me no matter what, that stabbed me in the back, stole from me, tried to copy from me, et cetera, maybe because I'm a woman, I don't know. I hope this isn't going to be a sexist remark. I mean, I really started to cry over the realization that somebody I could trust and love so much would stab me in the back. And I guess I could share with you the message Spirit gave me at that time.
Right.
And the message was very clear, David. It said, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "Because these people said they love me, and nobody loves me." I was really feeling sorry for myself. And Spirit said, "Love you." He says, "How can they even understand you?" He says, "They don't come from where you come from." And then the next statement I've kept for my whole life, David. It says, "You're not here to make friends. You're here to make waves." And then I got on with it.
Right. Yeah. Well, of course, I'll get on with it. And
right. I know you will.
Most people that I meet around the world and I interact with are lovely, like talk organizers and stuff like that. But then you have a situation where I came to Phoenix. You were there. You introduced me.
Right.
And I paid all the upfront costs for the venue. I paid all my expenses to get there and stay there. I spoke for 9 hours to hundreds of people. And the organizer of that event has never paid me a penny, not even my upfront costs. And again, when you look at that situation and you think, well, how can you possibly think of doing that? While proclaiming to be something different. You're right that there are enormous numbers of frauds and fakes in what claim to be spirituality and in the conspiracy movement to an extent as well, to a large extent. But there are some fantastic people, some wonderful people, researchers and others, and organizers, and some really truly spiritual people. And when you meet them, and when you meet people like I did in Trafalgar Square on Saturday, who've lost their children because they've been stolen by the state for spurious reasons, which is an epidemic in the world now, especially in Britain and America. When you see people who have been abused in satanic rings and abused by famous people, and you see them physically and emotionally and mentally blitzed, that's what makes you get up tomorrow and bounce again.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what sickens me about the frauds and fakes who talk about it and do the opposite.
Well, after a while you just realize that they're just reptilians in sheep's clothing. They can pretend to be something they're not, which a lot of people, and believe me, a lot of other broadcasters do. But I say by, it may sound corny, by their works you will know them. And that's,
exactly.
That's the end of that. If anybody out there, David's going through some pretty expensive court procedures, which I always see what's happening to you, David, as a huge attack from dark forces. And dark forces usually do use people closest to you to cripple you. Anybody listening, if you want to donate to help David in his legal costs, get over to davidicke.com. There's links all over my site to take you there, and start saving the messenger. We live in a world today where everybody wants to shoot the messenger, and these kind of attacks are pretty unsavory, and we all have to stick together. And you know very well, David, that I vouch 100% for your soul. And I don't do that for too many people on the planet, because a lot of them don't even have souls.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want people to, give their hard-earned money for, for me, in the sense that I can handle the legal costs in the situation I'm talking about. It's what's being demanded that is just off, just taking me back, and even more important that in 2002, a libel action was taken out against me. Again, usual stuff, usual reasons, and it's run from 2002 to now, and it's probably coming to its final trial in 2011. And my Canadian lawyer estimates that the preparation and the trial itself are going to cost probably between about $175,000 to $200,000. And what the situations that I'm facing at the moment means that if it comes to fruition, then I will not be able to fund that trial, and that will be the end of it, because I'll lose by default. And so many things will come from that. So, you look at these situations, and it does put you down. But being me, only for a few hours, and I'll be up and at it tomorrow. But again, all you can do in the end, as you well know, is trust that which has guided you through the maze, for me anyway, this last 20 years, as I describe in the new book, and has brought this information to me in an incredibly synchronistic way, that will make sure that the worst of this stuff does not come to pass. Because if it does, then my work, is in serious trouble.
Right. Well, we'll all be sending you good energy on this, because, what happens to the one happens to all of us. So just hang in there, David. Don't worry.
Oh, I'll hang in there. I don't know any other way. And like I say, tomorrow morning, it'll be, chin up, chest out, and off we go again. Because, this is not something you walk away from. Because, with everything, unpleasant thing is happening to you personally. This is beyond much, much, much bigger than an individual, much bigger than what's happening to one person in his or her life. This is a mission which is beyond just what happens to you personally.
Exactly. What needs to happen and what spirit makes happen on this planet. People should know better than to interfere with that. Anyway, let's get on to your
let's
book.
Talk about something pleasant, mate, shall we?
Absolutely. I mean, I have to tell you, everybody's telling me about the book. They're super excited. A lot of people finally got their copy. They're reading through it. I've been passing out your videos that you put out, and people are super excited. I got the lovely compliment that it figures that Meria Heller would be the lucky person to get you on the show once a month. So they're very excited about that, too. I was rereading your book. As I told you, it took me a couple of months to get through it the first time. And I'm up to we're talking about chapter 3 today, and you open with an excellent quote by Oscar Wilde. If you want to tell people the truth, make them laugh. Otherwise, they'll kill you. Isn't that the truth? And, I try to make people laugh as much as I can.
Well, the reason that actually I use that quote, in and of itself, it's good. But I used it in the context of chapter 3, which is that, of course, when I started talking about the sort of things 20 years ago that I talk about and have talked about all these years, then I went through the most unbelievable levels of ridicule in Britain, where I couldn't walk down any street without being laughed at by most of the people. I couldn't go in a bar. It was just impossible. There was uproar. Someone just had to say my name on the television, and they got a laugh. It wasn't necessary to have a joke with it. And these things, these traumas that you go through, quite possibly the one I'm going through at the moment, probably, you come out the other end stronger than when you went in. It's like steel being honed in the fire. And at the time, it seemed like everything in my life had fallen apart. I'd been a well-known television presenter in Britain with the BBC, respected and all the rest of it, all the stuff that goes with all this media rubbish. And then suddenly I'm on a talk show talking live to a massive audience. I mean, at the time we had about 60-odd million people in this country. 17 million watched that program because of all the pre-publicity in the papers about it and what had happened to me.
Right.
And at the end of that program, my life had changed. It was about a 12-minute interview or something like that. And by the end of that interview, that's when, from the moment I left the studio, I couldn't walk down any street without being laughed at, and all the stuff I've just described. And you think in the moment that your life's over, that it's finished, and it's kaput, and all the rest of it. But something deep inside me, that silent voice or quiet voice that I talk about in the book, was saying to me, "It's okay, keep going. It's going to lead somewhere. Don't worry, it's okay." But the David Icke level of me thought, "Well, that's it. I've just destroyed everything." But when I look back, and this is, I think, something that I'd like to make clear to everybody who's having a bad time, that when I look back, I can't say that I look at that period with affection.
Right.
Oh, no, but I don't look at it negatively, because what I've realized, and again, what we've talked about already today is probably all part of this. What I realize, and what we all realize if we look at our life in a certain way, is that it appears to be an ad hoc journey. It appears to be a series of random events. But if you look at it from a certain angle, from a certain level of perception, then you realize that these random events are actually a chain or a different steps on the same journey. And I didn't know, you see, and at the time, it's something I talk about in the book. It's like that level of us that I call consciousness, that infinite, expanded, out of the body level of us, it sees our journey from source to sea, if we take the river analogy, whereas the conscious mind, David Icke, as is perceived, and Meria, that only sees the next turn in the river. Therefore, they have two completely different perspectives on the same event. And I'm sure that I will, from that higher level of perception, look at current events in my life, and I'll see this in the same. I'll see why that happened at this point in the river, because it was part of a journey. And so that part of me that thought it was all over was my conscious mind. That part of me that was saying, "Hey, it's all right. It's leading somewhere." That was that level that can see from source to sea. And if you start to look at life from that higher perspective, then it does put things into a greater context. For instance, as I said in the book, you can be going down a river on a canoe, and you spring a leak, or you get washed to the shore, and you want to get to the further down the river before nightfall, and you're sitting on the bank, and you're cussing about your bad luck and all the rest of it, that you couldn't get where you wanted to get that night, and then someone comes along and says to you, "Hey, mate, crikey, you were lucky. There's a pretty big waterfall around that corner,
Right.
And so often we see with the benefit of what we call hindsight, that what were apparent disasters turn out to be gifts. As I've said many times, life tends to give us our greatest gifts, brilliantly disguised as our worst nightmare. And it's these two perspectives that we need to appreciate when we look at the same event, even the one that I'm talking about earlier today.
Right. Well, you can also look at it as bringing a lesson to the person bringing you the challenge. Maybe it's something they need to learn from, grow from, or drop dead from. One of the three would be okay. But sometimes that happens. Interesting, for whatever reason, I've noticed a few articles lately with you in it, David. And by the way, I have seen pictures and articles about these protests you've been attending. You've been getting a lot of attention, which of course always draws more heat, but I'm proud to see you in those pictures at these protests, etc. But one thing that I've been noticing, for whatever reason, recirculating these days, is when you said that you were a god, okay? And the flack that started after that, and all I could think of was when John Lennon said the Beatles were bigger than Jesus Christ, which of course was true at the time. Why do you think people get so afraid when you say that you are God? You know, I tell people the same thing. They tell me I'm an apostate and all kinds of things.
Well, what that came out of, Meria, was I went through a series of extraordinary experiences in 1990 and early 91. And it basically blew my top of my head off, symbolically, certainly energetically. And it was basically like living in a bubble, which disconnects you from the greater reality, which is where most people are, because that's the way the system impresses us and manipulates us to be from cradle to grave. And suddenly the bubble bursts, and as it bursts, suddenly all these other realities that you've not been aware of suddenly pour into your conscious mind. And when I went through that experience in the early 1990s, I talk about it in the book on a mound in Peru and all the rest of it. It was like so much information suddenly poured into my conscious mind, concepts and all the rest of it. It was like pressing too many keys on a computer and everything froze, because there was just so much information coming to me as a result of amazing experiences I had in places like Peru that I couldn't compute it at that time. And It was in that period that I did this big live interview on BBC television, which got me all the ridicule and all the rest of it. And then about 3 months after that, after the old life, the old persona, the old David Icke that people had come to know in Britain, suddenly he'd gone. I mean, he'd left the planet. He'd gone to another dimension.
Right.
This other David Icke had now come through, which was in terms of public perception. But after about 3 months, I remember everything started to morph back into clarity, and people were coming up to me and talking to me, and they were saying, "I thought you'd gone crazy, mate. You're the same bloke that I knew before." And I seemed to be, but I wasn't, because I was now seeing the world in a completely different way. And one of the things that I said during that period of the computer freezing, if you like, when I'm trying to process all that's going on in my mind, was that I was a son of God. And what I was trying to get across in my confusion at that time, I would use very different expressions now, was that we are all an aspect of the one whole consciousness. And if you want to use the term son of God or daughter of God or whatever for that expression of the whole, then that's the kind of context I was trying to use it in. But because of my own confusion in that period, because it was all just happening to me, I didn't understand what was happening to me. People thought that I was saying I was Jesus, which anyone reads my books will see that I'm saying the opposite to that.
Right.
But again, going back to that level of us that sees the journey from source to sea, I didn't know at that time that I was going to, a few years from then, start talking about extraordinary concepts and situations and information, like the world is ruled by hybrid bloodlines that are possessed by reptilian non-human forms, non-human entities that operate on a dimension just outside of that frequency range that we can decode as human sight, etc. Now, what happened to me, again, source to see, you don't know what's coming or why something's happening, but your wider consciousness does. I was being cleaned out at that time, I didn't know, of the fear of what other people thought of me. Because if you're not cleaned out of that, then you're going to do what most people do in the whole research community arena, though not so much now. The pioneers made it more acceptable to talk about it. But most people are going to say, hold on a second, this information may be leading me to think that reptilian entities are involved in human enslavement and control, but can you imagine what people are going to say about me if I say it? So I'm not going to say it.
Right.
But because I'd been through that period where I just literally, honestly, I'm not exaggerating, and people in this country will confirm it who were around at the time. There can't be many people who went through a scale of ridicule that I went through at that time. It was just extraordinary, merciless. And two things happen to you, or one of two things happen to you. Either you're destroyed for life and you go and disappear somewhere or sit shaking in the corner, or, as I said earlier, the fire hardens the steel, and you come out and say, laugh if you like, ridicule if you like, condemn if you like,
right.
But I am me, and I'm going to be me. I'm going to speak my truth, and if you don't like it, well, do the other thing. That's fine. That's your right, but you're not going to stop me doing what I believe to be right. And so that whole fear of what other people think, which puts the vast majority, I would say, the vast majority of people in a prison throughout their lives, because once you are in fear of what other people think of what you say and what you do, immediately you're not living your life anymore.
Right.
You're not in your power, you're not in your true essence, you're not in your true uniqueness. What you're doing is just mirroring in your life how other people believe you should be and what you should say and what you should do. In other words, you're no longer an aspect of infinite potential, infinite all possibility. You are attaching yourself to other people's sense of limited possibility, and you're just staying within the box, you're staying within the comfort zone. Right. And so because of what I went through with that extraordinary level of ridicule for years, and still today, peripheral people do the same who haven't actually bothered to look at what I'm saying and all the other stuff that's happening around me now.
Right.
That allows me now, and has done for many, many years, to say what I believe is the situation. I'm not saying, I'm the guru, I'm the God incarnate man, Jesus who's come, and all the rest of it, and you must believe me. No. What I'm saying is, when I open my mouth, it's what I am. It's my honest belief and my honest view of what I'm saying. I'm not editing it to make it acceptable to other people's belief systems. I will not do that. And it's that cleaning out of that fear of what other people thought because of that onslaught that has set me free to do that. So again, we're back to the source to see analogy. That was a nightmare in the experiencing of it, but It was such an incredible gift with hindsight, to and an essential element to what's come since.
Right. Well, it kind of fits in. You're talking to me, and, Spirit's talking to me at the same time saying, well, look at this. David's going back into the fire, and he's going to come out even stronger. And if you recall...
You're absolutely right, Meria. I mean, that will be the outcome of this eventually. But,
now, if you recall,
sometimes for a few hours, it does just smack you.
Well, sometimes people, get their heads split open and learn from it, and some people just keep banging their heads against the floor waiting for Spirit to take them out. So,
exactly.
We just sit back and take a wait-see, because, I always find, like yourself, every time I get attacked, I come out stronger and better. But I also know from, all the readings I do for people, when somebody's going through what you're going through, that means you're really going back into the fire, and you're going to come out with stuff that's even more powerful than what you've already come out with. So it's pretty exciting.
I think you're right. I think you're right. When I go into another level of me, as opposed to the David
physical,
Icke conscious mind level, I know that's the situation.
Absolutely.
Because I've experienced that so many times over the years.
And I know that you're, in a few weeks you're going back to see Credo Mudwa, and I know you've got lectures and things coming up. So my sense is that this is going to be yet another huge freeing experience for you. So it'll be very interesting to see what you end up coming back with. And, here we live in a world where, if you even take the words of Buddha, Buddha once, one of my favorite quotes of his was that God is the ocean and we are each a wave.
Uh-huh.
And so to tell people that you are a son of God, which Jesus said he was, people seem to accept it, but a lot of people ridiculed him. Hell, they killed him for saying that, if indeed he was real. And if we're all supposed to be able to do whatever he did, what's the problem in saying you're a son of God? See, to me, I don't even believe a son of God. I just really believe we are all God, experiencing
that's the point.
in different ways.
What happens as you go through this process of awakening more and more and expanding your awareness more and more, in that period when the computer had frozen, I was trying to understand what all this stuff was going on, that was happening to me. All this information, all these concepts, all these insights were just pouring in, and I was trying to process them. So very soon after that, I wouldn't use the term Son of God. I mean, I've not used that for nearly 20 years. And as I've said in my books, you're absolutely right. That's exactly the way I see it. We are the one consciousness. We're all different expressions of it. Just as we call the one ocean on Earth, the Indian Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean and the South China Sea, these are all names for the same in a kind of connected body of water. And what the system does in its manipulation of our perception is it seeks to get us to believe we are an isolated droplet disconnected from the ocean. And, I've said many times over the years, you can hold a droplet of water in your hand, and it appears to be individual.
Right.
But drop the droplet of water in the ocean, and where does the droplet end and the ocean start? It's all one ocean, and we're all one consciousness. But we're not all in this world of form, in this world of creation. We're not all at the same level of awareness, and therefore we see things, and we can see things, as you see with people in this world alone, in very, very different terms. We can look at the same situation, we can look at the same picture, we can look out the window, the same window, and we can see and read what we see in a completely different way to someone standing next to us.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's this interaction of different levels and states of awareness that actually makes this world so interesting in so many ways. Because the way I see it is that when you are in a disembodied state, a state of a consciousness rather than operating through form, the lens, the computer, the physical body, you gravitate to your vibrational level, which syncs with your vibrational state. And therefore, someone in a certain high vibrational state will not interact with consciousness on a lower vibrational state. But in this reality, because of the physical form, or what we call physical form, the holographic form, it means that through these lenses, consciousness of endless different levels of awareness and perception can actually look each other in the eye. And this makes this particular reality fascinating and at the same time extremely challenging. But it's a wonderful place to experience. And of course, not all experience is going to be nice experience, because, like I said earlier, sometimes your greatest gifts appear to be your worst nightmare until you realize why they were there and what they've given you.
Exactly. David, we're going to go to a short break. When we get back, I'd like to talk about some of these truths that you did get and come back with, we'll just say come back with, during what I see very clearly as your Kundalini experience. So stay with us. We'll be talking about that when we get back.
Are you living?
Okay, I might have dropped a bomb on you before that break with the word Kundalini. A lot of New Agers and supposed teachers talk about Kundalini, try to say they even know what it is, or, ooh, they experienced it. It's quite obvious, David, you experienced it when you had your period of time where you were really literally knocked for a loop. You were in your own Tales from the Time loop. You were knocked for one.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, I'd never heard of the Kundalini when it happened, but just very quickly, how that came about is that I, through 1989 and through 1990, started having this feeling for months, best part of a year, I was a television presenter at the time, that when I was in a room alone, I wasn't alone. I felt a presence around me. And this is all new to me at the time. And this presence got more and more potent, more and more blatant and tangible, until eventually, long story short, I tell it in the book, I've told it before, I ended up with a psychic who suddenly started telling me, a first psychic I've ever met, and she started telling me I was going to go out on a world stage and reveal great secrets, and I would come under tremendous resistance, and there would be a lot of attacks on me and all the rest of it, but they, quote, would always be there to protect me. And then, as a result of that and things that happened after that, I ended up flying to Peru, and I ended up a series of amazing kind of coincidences and synchronicities. I ended up on a mound in Peru, not far from a place called Lake Titicaca, apparently the highest navigable lake in the world, and one of the area where the Inca claim that the people that created the world came from, basically. Anyway, I ended up on this mound, and in the middle of a stone circle, which I found, quote, by accident. And when I went into the middle of this mound, this is 1991, very early February, I felt like a magnetic pull on the bottom of my feet. I'd experienced it before, but nothing like this. My feet were pulled into the ground, and then it felt like a drill was going in the top of my head. I realized later, of course, it was energy going through me, and there was another flow of energy coming the other way through my feet and out the top of my head. Then my arms went out at 45 degrees, which, without me thinking to do it or deciding to do it, they just went there, and this energy then started coming through me, and to the point where my body was shaking and shaking and shaking, like I was plugged into some electrical circuit. And my arms stayed out in the air at 45 degrees across the side of my head for the best part of an hour, and I never felt anything. But of course, when it was over, my shoulders were agony. And then I through this period of 45 minutes to an hour, I don't know, that this energy was coming through me. I kept going in and out of consciousness, like when you drive a car and you forget where the last 2 miles has gone. Your subconscious has been driving. Right. And one of the times that I came back, because what I heard when I first went to the mound and stood in the middle and this energy started, I heard this voice, or very strong thought form pass through my mind, which said, first of all, they'll be talking about this 100 years from now. And I'm thinking, talking about what? This is all new to me. And the second line was, it will be over when you feel the rain. And that would seem crazy, because I'm standing under a cloudless Peruvian sky and a piercing sun and no sign of rain anywhere. Anyway, as this process went on through this 45 minutes to an hour, and this energy is coming through me, and I came back from one of these, kind of non-conscious states, if you like, I noticed that over the distant mountains, there was a light gray mist. And as I watched it very, very quickly, this all happened very quickly, like a video that's been put on a slightly faster than normal. Mm-hmm. It became dark gray mist, and I realized it's pouring with rain over the distant mountains. And then over this next period, this rain came from the mountains towards me, and it was literally stair rod rain. It was just immense downpour. And as it was coming towards me, the sun was covered up as the clouds moved across, but the front was dead straight. I mean, weathermen talk about a front coming in. This was like someone had drawn it with a ruler and pen. Right. I've described it as like pulling curtains across the sky. And it got to the point where I'm literally standing there, and I'm watching this wall of rain come towards me, and then it hit me. And when it hit me, this energy stopped, and now I can feel my shoulders. My goodness, can I? And my legs are like jelly. And from that moment, nothing was the same again. And I came back to Britain and went straight onto that Wogan show, and bingo, the rest is history we talked about. Now, I'm thinking, what the hell happened? And you're absolutely right, because what had been triggered in that experience in Peru, whatever it was the Kundalini energy had been triggered at the base of the spine, and it shot up through my spine, smacking off all these energy centers and awareness centers, went out the top of my head, connecting me to some other level of awareness. And that is what was happening to me when I came back to Britain, and I don't know what the heck's going on. And we talked about earlier where, I'm thinking all these concepts, all these awarenesses and insights are flooding into me. It was that Kundalini connection, awakening, that had triggered that. It's completely understandable now, but at the time, of course, when you're going through it, and you don't know about these things, as I didn't, you don't know what's going on.
Right.
And it's interesting, I quote in the book a man called Isaac Bentoff, a book he wrote called Stalking the Wild Pendulum, and he says this: the Kundalini, as described in yoga literature, is said to be an energy coiled up like a serpent at the base of the spine. When this energy is awakened, it enters the spine, rises up along it, and is seen or perceived as a luminous serpent by the person having the experience. Well, you can do. I didn't experience like that. But once it has risen into the head, the luminous rod hopefully pierces the top of the head. That is, the rod-like energy beam is seen as projecting through the skull, pointing upwards. When this happens, the person is said to be illuminated. Eventually, such a person may become highly intuitive, develop some psychic powers such as clairvoyance, clairaudience, or healing abilities, and all the rest of it. And, lots and lots of people now are going through this Kundalini experience because of this energy change that's going on.
Right.
Not as like extreme as I went through it for whatever reason, but it's happening to more and more people, and it's really important to get this information out so people understand what's happening to them. Because if I'd have known what I know now, then that experience I went through would have been far less traumatic than it was, because I'd have understood what the hell was going on.
Right. It's scary when you don't know.
Absolutely.
It's kind of interesting because, I don't know, I guess I better warn you, David. You can have that Kundalini energy hit you a couple of times in the same lifetime. So you might find yourself having a little bit of a trip when you're out visiting Credo. When I was 4, I was knocked unconscious in a truck accident. And like you, I guess that smack to the head really turned on my clairvoyance, my clairaudience, all of that. And reading this chapter, I don't want to say laughing, but I could certainly identify, because you said, there I was looking through the same eyes, hearing through the same ears, but what I saw and heard was dramatically different. You said I began to see beyond the movie.
Yeah.
And that's huge. Most people can't even see the movie, let alone beyond the movie on this planet. And I think when you come out and say that, the world we thought to be real was a manufactured illusion, and at that point you didn't know anything else. You did know it wasn't real.
Yeah, exactly.
But now you had to start digging, and like myself, you didn't have a teacher that could just hand you the answers.
Life was the teacher.
Exactly.
The synchronicity of life and experience was the teacher in itself, which I think is the best.
Absolutely, and the synchronicity that you actually found a good psychic to be able to explain it to you was like a gift.
In the book also, I quote Bentoff on a couple of other things in this, which is very interesting, I think. He says about the Kundalini experience, it is ironic that persons in whom the evolutionary processes of nature have begun to operate more rapidly and who can be considered as advanced mutants of the human race are institutionalized as subnormal by their normal peers. I dare to guess, on the basis of discussions with my psychiatrist friends, that this process is not as exotic and rare as one would like us to believe, and possibly 25 to 30% of all institutionalized schizophrenics belong to this category, a tremendous waste of human potential. And he just goes on briefly. The reason for what happens in the Kundalini activation, why people are seen as strange, is the reason for this is that they have been catapulted suddenly into a situation in which they are functioning in more than one reality. They can see and hear things occurring in our neighboring realities, that is the astral and other higher realities, because their frequency response has been broadened. The onslaught of information may be overwhelming, and they begin to mix and confuse 2 or 3 realities. Well, he has just described how I felt after the Peruva experience and what was going on in me during that infamous live television interview and in that 3 months I've talked about. It was absolutely a Kundalini awakening. But of course, you say to the mainstream media, I've had a Kundalini experience.
Right.
They'll go, what? A Kunda what? What are you talking about? The guy's crazy because they don't deal in these things. You know, it's like, you know, who's having who in Hollywood. That's the kind of level we're dealing with.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I know lots of people, well, here in, you know, the Valley of the Sun, where everybody considers themselves a psychic of some level. Lots of people actually think that they can take classes to turn on their Kundalini energy. But the people that actually really go through the process, for some of them, you know, I've talked to them, it was like hit by a thunderbolt that gave them all the symptoms of a heart attack and physically threw them across the room. I mean, it was something that took days to be able to process.
Right.
That kind of energy coming through, you know, and I like the fact that you said I was receiving all these downloads. You know, I feel like that almost all the time. Like the top of my head, it's like, how many more discs can they possibly stick in this same head before I run out of room? But I can actually feel it now, where before I couldn't. What is interesting, I don't know if you remember, but when you and I were having dinner in Phoenix, I'm pretty sure I gave you a copy of my book on the Universal Medicine Wheel.
Right, you did.
And when I was reading this and realizing that this happened to you basically while you were standing in a circle of stones, I didn't think that it was anything less than synchronicity.
Right.
So you might want to revisit that because I think it's a great space for you to continue to protect and energize yourself.
Yeah, you know, the synchronicity of life is pointing big time to me. It's funny you should mention it, Meria, a few minutes ago, that another experience of that kind is coming to me very fast, maybe in South Africa in the next couple of weeks when I'm with Credo Mutwa and going into some deep stuff. But it's kind of pointing me that way. And but this time it will be easier because I'll understand what's going on as opposed to the last time when it's like, could someone just tell me what planet I'm on, please? Just confirm it. Which one is it?
Right.
It's just crazy when you don't know what's happening.
Well, I think it's going to be very exciting. So I think that you'll come back with a freedom that absolutely nothing will bother you again. I mean, I don't want to be corny, but it's almost like Jesus' 40 days and nights in the wilderness being tempted by Satan. But I don't even know if it was 40 days and nights. You know, my Bible knowledge is starting to wane, thank goodness. One of the big things you came out with in this, and I think this book is going to encourage a lot of other people to trust what they get from Spirit too, is you learned how vital it is to follow your intuition and your knowing.
Absolutely. My life was changed more than anything by precisely that. I decided in this period that if my mind, my head, was in conflict with my intuitive feeling, my intuitive knowing of what I needed to do or needed to say, etc., then I was always going to go with my intuition. I decided that in this period, and I've kept with it ever since. And it's been the guiding light, really, the guiding energy, the guiding, intuition. Right. Because so many times, of course, when your intuition is, because again, it's funny how we're talking here, and as we go through apparently different things, they connect into all the things we've said earlier. Intuition connects us into the source to see level of awareness, whereas our mind is the conscious mind sees the next turn on the river. So because the intuitive knowing is coming from a level that can see the journey, it is going to have a completely different, often completely different, doesn't have to be, view of what to do and how to behave and act in and respond in a certain situation to the conscious mind. Right. The conscious mind's going to be going, you can't do that. What will people say? Well, you've got a job. You can't just drop your job and go and do it. No, you can't do that. You can't go there tomorrow. You've got an appointment here and all this stuff. And it operates on that level. And it can get so dominant in people's perception of how how they should behave and what they should do, that basically the mind, the computer level, is running the show and running their lives. And the vast majority of people in the world are like that, but it's changing. Once you go with your intuition, it's going to, it's coming from, in terms of its decision making, a completely different level of perception and awareness of your journey. And therefore, it may seem that your intuition is telling you to do something crazy or something ridiculous. I can't do that. Why should I do that? But when you make that decision, as I did nearly 20 years ago, when that conflict comes in, the head and the heart, you might call it, I'm going to go with the heart. I'm going to go with the intuition. What happens is, of course, it's coming from a different level of awareness. Therefore, you're going to get yourself in mind perspective terms into situations that are unusual, challenging. Like me, you're going to get massively ridiculed and all the rest of it maybe. But in the end, as the mind, if you keep going with it and keep going with it, as the mind observes what happens when you follow your intuition, it sees that initially it might get you into a scrape, initially it might get you into an experience that you'd rather not have, but eventually it all works out. And it all works out not despite the fact that you followed your intuition and had these challenging experiences, but because you followed your intuition and had these challenging experiences. That's what got you to this place where you want to be, and it's all worked out right. And the mind then, in my own personal experience anyway, observes this and says, well, hold on a second, it works out in the end when you follow your intuition. And what happens, what happened to me anyway, and what happens to anybody who follows this, is the mind, your head, and your intuitive heart knowing start to speak the same language. The war stops. I cannot remember the last time that my intuition and my mind, my head, were not speaking the same language. And, it's like, instead of when the war's going on and the conflict between mind and heart is going on, where your intuition says do this and your mind's going, you can't do that, well, all that stuff I talked about.
Right.
What happens then is your intuition says, I need to do this, I know it, and your mind goes, okay, I'm with you, let's go. And it's a completely different way of living your life, and it's a tremendous freedom when that war stops between the conscious mind and the open heart.
Absolutely. And don't you find that it's also a grand adventure not having to live kind of in this flatlined experience that everyone else sees, to actually be outside the matrix and enjoy, a 10-dimensional, 100-dimensional existence instead of a 3-dimensional?
Yeah, I mean, if I get up in the morning and or at the start of a week and I can tell you all the things that I'm going to be doing that week, then that's a disappointing week for me. Of course, you have to have certain points, like Meria's ringing, so I've got to be here, and we'll do an interview and all that stuff. Or I'm speaking in this, so I've got to be here for that. Yeah, all those things, of course, they have to be done in the world that we live in, or nothing actually gets done. But I love it when in between all that, you just get up in the morning and you think, I don't know what's going to happen by the end of the day. I don't even know where I'm going to be by the end of the day. I mean, that is a wonderful, wonderful day for me. So when I'm traveling, and like when I go to see Credo over the next couple of weeks or so, you get up in the morning and you're in that adventure mode. You're in that adventure situation where you literally don't know what's going to happen in the next hour, never mind where you're going to be or what you're going to be doing by the end of the day. And that to me is when you're flowing with that adventure level of wonder.
Right.
That to me is the most special place that I can be in this reality anyway.
Absolutely. Because I do the show and I do lectures and whatever, when I look at my calendar and I see that I have things specifically scheduled, I kind of get bummed out a little bit for a second, because I really like having the freedom to just let life happen. The days happen and be open to it. But for my listeners who don't have the travel experience or opportunity of David, what David is talking about, you can experience on a trip to the mall. And that's kind of interesting because I was with one of my friends last night, David. We went to dinner and then we went to the mall. And we just had fun, going into some of the gag shops and looking at stuff and, trying on wigs, crazy stuff. And what was interesting is at the end of the night, he said to me, did you see this person? And did you notice the waiter that had this and that? And I looked at him and I had to actually honestly say, I didn't see anybody. I was fully in what we were doing. I didn't really see anybody else in the mall. I didn't see anybody else in the restaurant. I was so in the moment, which is something that you understand, that I just had pure pleasure. It wasn't like I had to notice anyone else in the Matrix. Everybody was in the girl in the red dress. Everybody was the girl in the red dress.
Well, it's funny because I've been like that much of my life, even before this experience. I would often, and still people can say it to me today, they say, why did you ignore me? I said hello to you the other day when I passed you in the street. Right. Never saw him, never heard him, because you can go into these deep levels of awareness, or whatever you want to call it, where literally this world doesn't exist except at the level of functioning, so you don't walk into the lamppost.
Exactly. And, I do that all the time. I find
myself in those modes more and more, actually.
I do that all the time, so it's nice to know I'm not the only one, because I can't recall. I don't really see these people. For me, I'm really just moving my avatar through the Matrix, having a good time. So, I used to think there was something wrong with me, but now I say, wow, that's something really right with me. So when we teach people, and I'm sure you do too, to be fully present to what you do, it really is like giving yourself a present by being present.
Yeah, my son, my younger son, Jamie, he's like that too. It's like, Jamie, no response. Jamie, right. No response. Jamie, yeah, what?
Right, he's out there.
I don't know where he goes, but he goes somewhere far away, that's for sure.
Well, I've always noticed that with my son too. Sometimes I'm a little jealous. I'm like, wow, where are you? Take me too. Well, David, I want to wish you great luck and success and fun on your trip. And, I know we're scheduled for next month when you get back.
Yep.
And I can't wait to hear your new experiences, because I know they're going to be awesome. I already
we can talk about what happens in South Africa. The prime reason I'm going is to get down onto on camera, which we can then transfer into books as well. As much knowledge as Credo Mutwa wants to put down, because he's in his 80s now. He's been saying this for years, Mr. David, I haven't got long left. And I say, you'll be all right. I haven't got long left. I'm going to be around. And then years later, he still is. But, you don't go on in this reality indefinitely.
Thank God.
And what he wants to do is get as much of his knowledge down, so it's preserved for forever, for posterity.
Absolutely. It's an excellent
idea. So that's
idea.
the reason. But you're right. There's going to be a lot of other things as well as that are going to go on.
Well, I know there'll be quite a few gifts and surprises for you, so I'll be anxiously. Well, I guess you won't be available through email, but I'll be waiting.
No, I'm way out in the wilds, and I might be able to get on the internet a couple of times, 2 or 3 times a week, maybe, but
right.
Not much.
Well,
which is actually going to be nice, experience,
yeah,
really.
To unhook is a wonderful thing. Well, maybe you can just send me some messages telepathically. I'm sure I can tune into that vibe.
It'll be interesting, and we'll have a chat next time we talk.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you take good care, and we'll talk soon.
Okay. Thanks, Meria.
Thank you, David.
Bye.
Bye. David Icke, his latest book, Human Race, Get Off Your Knees, The Lion Sleeps No More. So it's a show that started out with, the typical human BS that we all have to muddle through to be here. I guess that's what makes the game so exciting. I've got something exciting like that going on in my life, too. And trust me, I'll make it way more exciting for the person I'm taking a cart. And then we got into how much fun it is and really what a Kundalini experience is like. Trust me, you're going to know if it happens to you. It's not something your guru or teacher is going to be able to wave a wand over your head and bingo, there it is. Anyway, hopefully I'll have my my video of my speech on how to detect psychic frauds and frauds in general up online in the next week or so. So that's going to be a lot of fun for you guys to watch, because I was pretty hilarious. Remember, say it with humor. People can get it. Thanks for listening, supporting the show. See you guys next time.